PaaS services may not necessarily do what you need them to do. You need a little bit more flexibility than what the base offerings have. So you've chosen AKS, or you've chosen Kubernetes, and then you want to sort of start with the base tools. However, obviously there is a lot of additional things that you can layer on, as I've sort of shown within the presentation, some of the built-in tools. Choose the tooling, obviously, that you need. There's quite a few different offerings, and there's a lot more offerings as well that aren't mentioned in this talk either, that have been around for a while too. And then try to invest in that fleet operations early. So that last bit about Azure Fleet Manager, again, that makes the management significantly easier. Cool. I might have another demo, but let's see how we're going for time. I think we're getting on there, but I'll show it quickly. So this, no, you can't see that yet. So this is a AKS automatic, and let me just double check, because there was, I only recently built this cluster, so it may not be fully provisioned yet, but let's just double check. It's good to go. It's good to go. So as I was explaining before, the Fleet Manager is basically a like an overall control plane that then allows you to then manage multiple AKS clusters. So this is great for scenarios which are like even entry-level scenarios in terms of if you've got multiple environments. So most organizations might have like a dev test prod environment. So with that, you may already have multiple clusters. You may have like 2 clusters, maybe you've got 3, maybe 4. So already Fleet Manager is actually helpful for you just for the upgrade scenarios. So Fleet Manager, unless it's changed, for the upgrade scenario, it didn't actually cost you anything at all. It was something that you could just do. If you want to then, another advanced functionality of Fleet Manager is that you can actually go ahead and deploy an application across multiple clusters in a single action as well, which then had an additional cost with that. But for using the Fleet Manager, there is a separate resource, and I'll just show that briefly. And then if we go into our Fleet Manager, so we can go ahead and add 1 or more member clusters. And I've already added mine just then. And then we can go to our multi-cluster update. And then we can go ahead and create a profile or a manual run. But basically, we can go ahead and just demo status. So I've only got 1 cluster in this case, so there won't be heaps to see, but you can sort of see there just from the dialogue in terms of that then you have the ability to determine update sequencing. So you can actually go ahead and then within here, once you've got your clusters, you can go ahead and define stages. And then you can also have gates as well. So again, that dev test prod scenario works really nicely in terms of that you can go ahead and roll out your tests to dev, nobody screamed, then basically have it approve or automatically roll forward after a period of time to then the next stage and the next stage. So yeah, pretty cool for what you have, the ability to manage at least that. And then you can choose, so if you're not familiar with AKS, they have basically a thing called a release channel, which determines how fast you get updates. there's the ability to lock it to a specific version and then trigger it manually, or you can go ahead and choose like a release channel and have it automatically upgrade if you like. So there's a few different options there, but then you can go ahead and then define and choose a strategy, which I haven't defined. But then this would be effectively you go ahead and define the strategy, you pick all your clusters, you put them into effectively like a workflow for your update process, and then you basically go ahead and define that and then schedule it, right? Have it automatically happen for you, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that was just a small little demo there for people that are less familiar with it. But let me go ahead and spin the code back up. And I guess, is there any questions? Yeah.
That's super awesome. I haven't thought about, so my problem scenario that I'm coming up against a bit now that GPT 4.0 is coming to end of life, and most of my customers have data residency requirements, is that they're looking at the PTU as the only option.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know, and it's probably more expensive because you're getting essentially deploying the whole cluster, but do you know what the cost comparison is versus a PTU deployment versus, because this would be amazing for a lot of customers with.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head, but effectively, I guess to calculate it, really, in this scenario, we're not talking about, although Kubernetes is a PaaS service, effectively it runs and orchestrates an IaaS service. So it orchestrates virtual machines. So I guess to answer the question there, the cost for your Kubernetes equivalent of the PTU would be what virtual machine size do you want to run and how much does that cost you, right? So it's basically the virtual machine cost versus the PaaS service cost, which would be slightly different, but there are also different management boundaries and different things to think of there. So it's not apples for apples, but it probably will be cheaper, but obviously go ahead and run the numbers.
Yeah. Really interesting idea.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions?
So we've seen two talks today. There's kind of the same problem. How do I run compute in the cloud? Obviously, Kubernetes is to build it yourself, way more options. But I'm interested in the kind of differences between them. One of my questions was going to be, what about hardware that needs to be specific on models that run on that? You covered that really well with actually there's new stuff in Kubernetes that can just identify particular hardware and help you match the hardware to your models. What does ACS, so the containers, have in that space? Is the containers just, this is always a standard container, therefore you're kind of limited on what you can run because it's not quite so finely tuned? How are the ACS containers tuned hardware-wise? But
the simple answer is yes.
yeah.
But there is configuration. Obviously, AKS is going to give you
way more.
But there is configuration in the containers. You're spinning them up, but just at that higher PaaS level. So
do you pick things like types of GPUs and that kind of thing when you pick the container now? So it's not going up to.
Like
I think it's GPUs now, but I guess really the answer is that it's about the management boundary, right?
Yeah.
So again, I guess with standard and automatic, I basically gave you two like points where the management changes, right? You've got standard, you've got automatic, and then like Azure Container Apps is even further, right? So it's about the management boundary and what you have access to. You don't have access to like the direct hardware or anything like that when you go to the ACA, but you may not need it, right? Ultimately though, the ACA does end up running on Kubernetes anyway. You're getting just a smaller window of what you can see, right?
I don't know if that would be my instinctual first use case. Like I think
it sounds for a lot of use cases, the easier ACS way is probably best. Kubernetes is when you really want to take control.
Yeah,
or you have Kubernetes capability already in your
I think if your primary focus is I'm going to run apps, I'm running apps on app service, I know I've got apps that run on app service. I can easily push them over to ACA. No drama. It's nowhere near the level of drama as dropping into Kubernetes. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
But Kubernetes gives you more opportunities to do different things than just run apps.
Yeah, I think the first two use cases, like inference and training, we wouldn't be able to do an ACA almost certainly. I think ACA sandbox in most.
I mean, you could try.
Yeah.
But at that point, you're going, is this really the right tool for the job? Like, I think, you can try and use any tool for any job. It may not be the best one for that job. I think if you're leveraging some really pretty grunty things, go AKS. Don't muck around.
You might be able to just get away with the inference option. Definitely you can get away with the agent option, right? But the inference option, you might just be able to get away with it if you choose like the right SKUs and things like that. But I think you would have no chance of doing it in a training scenario unless you were just doing more of a proof of concept training.
Toy training,
The GPU access and the amount of GPUs that you have access in there is like almost nothing, right? So unless it's changed significantly, but the last time I looked at the available SKUs, they were just starting to add some GPU functionality, and there wasn't that much. But
it's not really meant for that.
No, it's not.
My next question is, how do I play with this stuff without just eating my credit card? Like this guy, when he goes to Microsoft once again, hey, try out this new thing we've got at Microsoft. You'll love it.
I can tell you how to play with it.
Credits. I click through the wizard, and then I blinked, and all my free credits were gone.
Put your credit card down. You can play for it as long as you want.
So yeah, it's there like low. Because I saw the price come up on the demo. They said, "Here, here's the price," and it was $150 US.
Obviously, if you don't want to spend as much, you're going to be focusing on smaller compute and smaller power. And then the question is, well, maybe I'm not hosting my own DeepSeek R1 if I'm not wanting to spend much money. So maybe I'm not in that use case.
Yeah, is there something cheap you can pick just as a really basic AI that's doing much?
What you want to do. I think it comes back to what's that use case? What are your drivers and what you're trying to do? Rather than
my initial use case would be learning this to kind of be able to then use it, but but when a use case comes along, then I have more familiarity with the tools, so I can then deliver the real use case.
Yeah.
My initial use case is learning, then my initial use case is applying what I've learned to help a customer.
I think in any scenario like that, you've got to extrapolate based on your knowledge and your capability. Like you're probably not spinning up that DeepSeek model and running it for a full year. You're probably going to do something small and extrapolate.
So going on to that question first. So I'm not entirely sure, but I would definitely check out the QR code that Dan put up before in terms of the hands-on labs, because I haven't checked it for the AKS content, but in past I know that then they may provide one of two options. They may provide a sandbox subscription, which then you don't own, but then is like generated at runtime and then allows you to try stuff. For DeepSeek, probably not, but double check the content. They might provide at least some access there. Second, they might also provide like a temporary, like a small, like sponsored subscription that then you can use for like a certain amount of credits or something like that. So I would check out the training material, and then you may or may not want to do the training material per se, but you may be able to leverage that environment to then do stuff. Not entirely sure, but double check it and see whether that helps you out. The other thing is for the AKS, I've got a link on the screen there now for the AKS hands-on labs. So that doesn't specifically align directly to this particular presentation in terms of all of it, but it does go through a bunch of stuff around how AKS works and how you can actually start to learn more about AKS and Kubernetes. So definitely check that out. Asif?
Yeah, so I guess one of the questions is about some of the previous slides that we had. So there's one Because AI, it's got AI, ion triangle. The lead.
Oh, yes, the
Oh.
triangle, yep, the iron
So
triangle.
why not a square, I guess, because what about security? Does it not provide something like security as well in addition to the quality, speed and cost?
No, it's not that there's no security, it just means that you don't have to necessarily trade security.
Okay.
In terms of, but then, like, in terms of the Microsoft services, at least maybe it's biased, I am biased, but I guess, like generally for the solutions, we do try to focus quite a bit on security. So in this particular case anyway, for the iron triangle, it's not necessarily saying that then by choosing a PaaS solution, you necessarily need to compromise on security. They all have security, but these are the things that you might need to trade in terms of the solution that you choose.
All those three options, I'd put security firmly inside quality, because you can have it fast and cheap, and it won't be secure, and that's what makes it bad quality. So I think that's
Yeah,
security
part of the
best
quality.
way.
That's also a different take on it. Cool. No other further questions?
So the surrounding system like Grafana, Promises, and Helm charts, do you see any influence changes? I don't think so, just in case.
No. So I guess the Kubernetes system has a fairly big ecosystem of different components. So with, I'm not sure if it's in one of these, I think it's in one of these slides. In terms of, it's not obvious, but this orangey one to the far right that looks like a flame is actually Prometheus, the Prometheus logo. So in terms of AKS has a bunch of options around that. More and more, it's been like, because that's what the open source community is demanding. The Prometheus and Grafana. So there is actually, when you go ahead and deploy an AKS automatic, it'll actually ask you, do you just want the Prometheus and Grafana like stuff installed and enabled, right? And so we'll go ahead and basically do that as part of the install. So in terms of that, it makes it an easy. It still exists in the ecosystem, for sure. Or you can obviously choose the Azure Monitor path as well. So they're both different options. So I think the tool's still there. I would say that currently we already have moved a long way from you having to think about and configure that yourself. It's now reasonably mostly tick boxes for initial setup at least, which is great because it makes it super fast to provision. But yeah, those tools are still there, still evolving. And obviously when they're managed tools, then obviously you'll also get the updates as well, right? Does that answer the question, Jodie?
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if there's nothing further, yep, go ahead.
If we use a small application,
Mhm.
when would you suggest to use AKS instead of the Azure Container Apps?
Yeah, so I guess for a small application, AKS may not be the best fit. It would depend on a few factors, right? So if it's small in terms of that, then it doesn't have a lot of functionality, but it's business critical and has a high user base. So maybe like you have a lot of people accessing it, then Kubernetes might be a good fit for it in terms of scale and availability, reliability. But if it's got a very small footprint and it doesn't actually consume much, and the business is concerned about, is this really that important? Can we just find a place to put it? Then Kubernetes does have a lot of overhead in terms of like management that needs to be done for a small application. So typically we would see it be used more when you get that scale question about, okay, well, I need to be able to scale up and provide resiliency and a high SLA in terms of it being up. That would be a much better fit. Something that then for a small application, probably Azure Container Apps is a great fit for that because again, it provides the least amount of stuff that you need to configure and learn. It's mostly just does its thing with the common ways you can expose it. And then again, it's a PaaS managed service, and most of that underlying Kubernetes stuff is you don't even need to think about, so you don't need to learn it either. So yeah.
Expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think some other vectors that you could look at this problem from is, do you want to run this on premise? There's, some of the more PaaS. Actually, does Container Apps, is that in Arc now? I can't remember, but AKS is definitely Arc. So if you want to run this on premise and you had concerns around, sovereignty or where that was located, I think Arc enabled AKS is a great opportunity. If you had a large amount of applications that your organization was hosting, and this was just another small application, potentially AKS, mind you, ACA has got a very large capability to host a large amount of stuff and a large amount of users. So you'd really have to my go-to is if I have an application, the first question is, can this run on app service? App service can run containers. If it's a small application, app service is a great platform, super easy. If you go, I don't really think it's right for app service because of orchestration, container interaction. Is that orchestration small? Can I run it on ACA? Do I have really in-depth orchestration and interaction with large, vast number of containers? Maybe those other two aren't the right one. Maybe you want to go to Kubernetes. So it's sort of like as your application increases in complexity, demands, needs, abstract needs that are not necessarily just a standard PaaS offering, that's how you'd sort of assess it. But Kubernetes is not the first go-to. Like if you just have a web page, it's not Kubernetes.
Yeah, I just want to share my example of using Azure Container. I think it's helpful. I was working at a company back in 2024. We have a single SQL Server instance, about 50 developers. And then what's happened is we use a Redgate plugin to validate the database deployment. And was a pain every time someone tried to do unit tests, the database has changed. And that time baggage was a concern as well. I could not go for Kubernetes. And I implement Azure Container to deploy the web application API and believe it or not, SQL Server run on Linux to test the deployment. And then on Azure DevOps, I have a pipeline. The developer just passed his branch and automatically deploy everything on that Azure container. And validate the branch and the deployment. Save a lot of time for the developers and solve the problem of conflict between them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is breaking the database. I'm just sharing simple example. I use Azure Container, not Kubernetes.
Azure Container is, it's not super complicated to use comparatively. So your use case is not crazy. Choose a simpler PaaS offering, I think, and try and choose the simplest one you can to achieve the outcome.
May I also, I guess. So
something about if it's a simple web application, I guess you can use the Azure static web app and for backend, you can use something like app function, pretty much, which can also save on the cost. I think that would be super useful. Something simple though, if it's not.
100%.
Yeah, that's great. I love the discussion happening here. This is what we need in more meetings. So keep that up.
Agree.
Sharing experiences. So yeah, that was all I had for my talk anyway. But if you have some other questions that you didn't want to discuss in there, I'll be out there after we wrap up and we can have a quick chat. But yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much, Elinora and Damien. So we always appreciate our speakers here.
I'm the plan, so
Thanks, Dan.
So I wanted to point out with the with those hands-on labs, I do believe they're time bound. So if you're going to use them